They didn't break you, chosen one. They just spray-painted their own downfall with your pain. My dear chosen ones, listen closely. This isn't just a title. This is a reality check. They didn't just hurt you. They kicked the hornet's nest, and now they're the ones getting stung. They thought they were just playing games with your heart, your name, your mind. In their head it was all fun, all control, all dominance. But what they really did was press a red button they didn't even know existed. They woke up a backlash they can't sweet talk, fake smile, or manipulate their way out of. You don't crush a quiet soul and expect quiet consequences. You don't push a calm ocean and then complain when a tidal wave hits. That's what happened. They poked the wrong person. My dear chosen ones, you weren't just a random target. You were the last warning, the line they were never meant to cross, the final "don't do this" they ignored. They thought you were easy to handle, easy to gaslight, easy to throw away. But what they never understood is that some people come with built-in recoil. When you push them too far, reality itself snaps back. And I know what's been running through your mind. Why me? Why did they choose me? Why did it feel like I was the punching bag, the scapegoat, the one everyone turned on? You've replayed the insults. You've replayed the moments you stayed quiet when you wanted to scream. You've replayed the fake smiles, the betrayals, the way they made you question your own worth. Let me answer that for you, chosen one. They saw something you didn't see in yourself yet. They saw power you hadn't fully claimed. They saw depth they couldn't copy. They saw strength they couldn't control. You didn't threaten them because you were loud. You threatened them because even when you were silent, you were real. They live off illusions, fake status, fake confidence, fake stories where they're always the hero. Then you walked in, just being you. Genuine, honest, sensitive, but not weak. Hopeful, but not blind. And your presence did something unforgivable to them. It exposed how empty they really were. Every time you were kind, it highlighted their cruelty. Every time you stayed loyal, it made their disloyalty louder. Every time you told the truth, their lies shook a little. So what did they do? They attacked the mirror instead of fixing the reflection. My dear chosen ones, they didn't just mistreat you. They ran a whole campaign on your name. They whispered, they laughed. They tried to isolate you so their version of you would be the only one others saw. They wanted you broken, bitter, small, because a small version of you made their fake greatness look big. But here's the part they never calculated. Endurance has a cost, too, for the attacker. Every time you swallowed the pain instead of lashing out, every time you walked away instead of exploding, every time you cried in private instead of begging in public, something was building, not just in you, but around you. Pressure, momentum, balance, loading in the background. You might be asking, if there's really such a thing as balance, as karma, as universal payback, why didn't it stop them sooner? Why did I have to go through so much? Because, chosen one, sometimes the slingshot has to be pulled all the way back before it launches. You weren't being ignored, you were being loaded. You were gaining a story, a depth, a level of inner power that comfortable people never reach. The pain they handed you became the exact material used to reinforce you. And now, without even trying to destroy them, you've become their consequence. Not because you're out here plotting, but because you're still here, healing, growing, refusing to turn into what they tried to make you. Your calm exposes their chaos. Your progress exposes their stagnation. Your peace exposes their guilt. That nervous laugh they do now, that over-explaining, that fake confidence that doesn't sit right anymore, that's not swagger, that's fear. Fear of the story flipping, fear of you no longer being the victim in their narrative, but the proof that they were always the problem. My dear chosen ones, understand this. You didn't become dangerous because you learned how to fight dirty. You became dangerous because you learned how not to. You didn't chase revenge. You became the example that makes revenge unnecessary. Your glow-up, your boundaries, your new standards, that's the payback. They said you'd never make it without them, and now they have to watch you breathe easier without their weight. They said you were too sensitive, and now that same sensitivity lets you read rooms they can't even enter. They said no one would believe you, and now people are starting to notice their patterns all by themselves. You've already paid your price in sleepless nights, in tears no one saw, in sitting alone when everyone else chose the lie over you. You've walked through the emotional fire and came out with new skin. This next phase, it's not about proving them wrong. It's about living so fully that their version of you burns up in the atmosphere. Let them talk. Let them deny. Let them pretend they don't notice the shift. Because you, my dear chosen ones, have better things to do than to chase people running from their own reflection. And if this is hitting that place inside you that's been quietly saying, "Something is changing, I can feel it," then stay with me. This isn't just a video, it's a transmission for those who've been carrying silent wars in their chest. If you feel that, drop a 999 in the comments so I know you're locked in with the other chosen ones. Tap like, subscribe, not just for the algorithm, but to push this message into the feeds of people who still think they're alone in this. You're part of this movement now, not as a background extra, but as the pulse, the force, the storm they never saw coming. Before we move forward, my dear chosen ones, take a moment to support this mission. If this message is hitting home, if it's lighting a spark you thought you lost, do your part by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It may seem small, but it fuels us to keep creating the powerful, inspiring, and life-shifting content that speaks directly to souls like yours. Every like, every subscription, every bit of support helps us push these truths further into the world, toward people who need the same strength you're finding right now. You're part of this movement. Let's rise together. Number 1. They poked the quiet one and awakened a force they were never built to face. They thought you were harmless until they realized the quiet one is the last person you should provoke. My dear chosen ones, let's talk plainly. They didn't just cross your boundaries. They stomped on them, spit on them, and dared the world to stop them. They thought you were soft clay they could mold into something small, something silent, something obedient. But here's the truth they never saw coming. You were never clay. You were a dormant earthquake waiting for the right tremor to crack the ground open beneath their feet. And they jumped on the fault line thinking it would never move. You know what's funny, chosen ones? The louder someone pretends to be powerful, the more terrified they are of someone who actually is. That's why they came for you. That's why they pushed you. That's why they tried to humiliate you in front of others. Because your calm made their chaos obvious. Your honesty made their lies uncomfortable. Your presence made their insecurities itch. They didn't torment you because you were weak. They tormented you because they were. But hear this, my dear chosen ones. When they chose to attack someone who carried quiet strength, they unknowingly signed up for consequences they're not built to handle. It's like flicking a match at a forest and laughing at the first flame, only to watch the entire horizon ignite. They didn't just poke a lion, they kicked it while it was resting, and now they're acting shocked that the jungle is waking up around them. And maybe you've wondered, why did they target me? Why did they put so much effort into breaking me? What did I ever do to deserve this? Let me answer what you've been silently asking. They saw something in you long before you even recognized it yourself. They saw conviction where they had emptiness. They saw depth where they had nothing but shallow masks. They saw truth in you, and truth terrifies people who survive off illusions. They thought you were easy prey. They thought your kindness was something to exploit. They mistook your silence for surrender, not knowing silence is where storms gather strength. They believed you'd shatter if they applied enough pressure, not realizing pressure creates diamonds, not dust. And now they're realizing the biggest miscalculation of their lives. The same weight they dumped onto your shoulders is now the weight crushing their own. They're confused, nervous, paranoid. They can feel the shift, that heavy energy circling them. That's not your revenge, chosen one. That's their reality catching up. That's what happens when you pour poison into someone else's cup. Eventually, you forget which one you filled. My dear chosen ones, you didn't have to expose them. You didn't have to fight dirty. You didn't have to scream your truth. Life did the talking for you. Every lie they told is unraveling. Every smear they spread is backfiring. The very stories they used to bury you are now digging them a deeper pit. They thought they were burying you in darkness. They were only planting you. And now you're rising through soil they thought would suffocate you. You're glowing while they're panicking. You're healing while they're unraveling. You're moving forward while they're stuck, replaying the moment they decided to come for someone they should have left alone. They don't hate your success. They fear what your success says about their failure. They don't hate your growth. They hate that it exposes how little they've evolved. They don't hate your peace. They hate that it proves they no longer have access to you. And here's the part that stings them the most. You didn't need to seek revenge. You didn't need to ruin their life. The truth did it. Reality did it. Their own actions did it. You became untouchable the moment you stopped explaining yourself and started living in your power. So let them talk. Let them spiral. Let them feel the consequences of their own decisions. You don't owe them anger. You don't owe them answers. You don't owe them anything. They threw you in the fire hoping it would destroy you, but heat only strengthens what's already solid. You walked out of the flames, forged, focused, unshakable, and they're still coughing on the smoke of their own choices. My dear chosen ones, remember this. You didn't just survive their attacks. You became the reminder that some storms don't warn you before they break. You are the aftermath they never prepared for. You are the chapter they never thought you'd write. And now, they're learning the hard way that when you try to destroy someone who carries quiet power, you don't win. You expose your own downfall. Your story moves forward. Theirs stalls exactly where they left their integrity behind. Number 2. Their oversized ego signed the downfall their reality couldn't survive. They strutted like giants until their own ego tripped them and the fall exposed how small they truly were. My dear chosen ones, listen closely because this part cuts deep. They didn't just hurt you out of spite. They did it out of delusion. Their ego was so swollen, so overinflated, so paper-thin, fragile, that they actually believed they could rewrite your worth with their words, their actions, their lies. They walked around acting untouchable, thinking that as long as they kept the spotlight on your flaws, no one would notice their emptiness. But here's the twist they never prepared for. When ego builds the throne, reality always kicks it over. They didn't just overestimate themselves, they underestimated you, and that was their fatal error. My dear chosen ones, their arrogance wasn't confidence, it was camouflage, a costume they wore to hide the cracks in their identity. You ever seen someone talk big but tremble inside? That was them. Every boast, every smirk, every cruel remark was not a sign of power. It was a confession of insecurity, and you, chosen one, with your steady presence and quiet strength, exposed that insecurity without even trying. They couldn't handle it. That's why they mocked you. That's why they competed with you when you weren't even competing with them. That's why they twisted stories, twisted faces, twisted your name. They needed you to look small so their ego didn't collapse in their hands. But ego has a funny way of writing checks reality refuses to cash. And now, chosen ones, that bill has come due. Maybe you've wondered, why would someone go out of their way to hurt me when I did nothing but care? Because caring terrified them, kindness threatened them. Your authenticity made their act crumble. You showed up real, and their whole existence depended on pretending. They didn't attack you from power. They attacked you out of fear that someone like you could see through them. They thought if they kept pushing you down, their image would stay up. They thought if they made you doubt yourself, they'd look stronger. They thought if they poisoned your name, yours would be the one to rot. But chosen one, ego is a boomerang. Throw it hard enough and it always comes back, not to the target, but to the thrower. And now, they're living the consequences of their own illusion. Their reality is collapsing at the seams, and they can't blame anyone but themselves. Every lie they told is unraveling. Every mask they wore is peeling. Every person they manipulated is starting to see the pattern. That's the wrath they awakened, not divine anger, but natural balance, universal correction, the unavoidable recoil of inflated pride bursting under its own weight. My dear chosen ones, understand this. You didn't have to expose them. You didn't have to fight them. You didn't have to prove anything. Their own ego did all the work. They puffed their chest so hard they couldn't see the edge of the cliff beneath their feet. And when they fell, they weren't pushed, they slipped. They thought they were playing chess with you, moving pieces, controlling narratives, but they were really playing Jenga, pulling out their own stability one block at a time. You were just the silent witness to their self-destruction. And that silence? Oh, it's eating them alive now, because people with inflated egos can handle opposition, but they can't handle being ignored. They can't handle their target rising without acknowledging them. They can't handle watching you soar while they choke on the smoke of their own downfall. Your peace is their punishment. Your healing is their exposure. Your growth is the mirror they never wanted to look into. That's why they're restless now. That's why they're scrambling, explaining, justifying, shifting blame. Because nothing terrifies a prideful person more than being revealed without you ever lifting a finger. My dear chosen ones, the beauty of this entire turnaround is simple. They believed they were the main character, the commander, the one pulling the strings. Instead, they became the lesson, the warning. The example of what happens when ego becomes bigger than character. They carved their own downfall with every attempt to make you doubt yourself. They thought destroying you would elevate them. But now your elevation is highlighting how far they've fallen. And the most painful part for them, watching you glow, watching you smile again, watching you rebuild without even mentioning their name, that silence of yours. It's thunder to their ego. It's the sound of irrelevance setting in. They wanted to be the villain in your story, but they ended up being the cautionary tale in their own. So let them deal with the fallout. Let them wrestle with the consequences. Let them confront the emptiness they tried to fill with your suffering. You owe them nothing, not revenge, not attention, not sympathy. Their oversized ego wrote the script of their collapse, and reality delivered it line by line. You, my dear chosen ones, are not defined by their cruelty. You are defined by your ability to rise in silence while everything fake around them falls apart. They awakened a wrath they can't escape, not because you're vengeful, but because truth always catches those who run from it. And now you walk forward, not as their victim, but as the reminder that no ego can overshadow a chosen one. They invested in illusions. You invested in growth. They lost. You outgrew. Number 3. They tried to scorch you, but all they did was ignite your transformation. They lit the flames, but forgot some people don't burn. They become the blaze. My dear chosen ones, let's get into this. Because this part right here, this is the moment their entire strategy backfired so hard, it flipped the script on their whole existence. They tried to scorch you. They tried to turn up the heat until you cracked, collapsed, surrendered. They wanted to watch you melt under pressure they couldn't even survive for a single day. They threw flames at you thinking you'd run from the fire, but they didn't realize they tossed those flames at someone who was built in the fire. And maybe you've asked yourself, why did they push so far? Why didn't they stop when they saw the damage? Why did they keep adding fuel? Let me answer that for you, my dear chosen ones. They were convinced you were fragile. They assumed you were made of the same thin material they hide behind: fear, ego, insecurity. They thought you were soft because you loved deeply. They thought you were weak because you forgave easily. They thought you were helpless because you didn't fight dirty the way they did. What they didn't know was that the fire they used wasn't burning you. It was burning off everything you were never meant to carry. Every betrayal peeled back another layer. Every insult burned away another illusion. Every moment they pushed you toward breaking became the moment you began building a strength they'd never understand. Chosen ones, let me tell you this clearly. They didn't destroy you. They revealed you. See, when fire touches cheap material, it crumbles. But when fire touches something rare, metal, crystal, stone, it reshapes it. That's you. They threw flames thinking you'd turn to ashes, but instead you stepped out forged, refined, sharper than ever. They thought they were ending you, but they were preparing you. They thought they were burning you alive, but you were transforming right in front of them, silently, powerfully, and far beyond their control. And oh, how it bothers them now. Because now they're watching the very thing they tried to destroy become the one thing they can't outrun: your transformation. You're glowing in ways they never expected. You're moving in silence they can't decipher. You're healing in places they tried to break forever. And it haunts them, because suddenly the person they tried to shatter is the strongest version of themselves they've ever seen. They can't understand how you rose. They can't understand how you rebuilt. They can't understand how the fire they lit became your fuel. But you understand, my dear chosen ones. You felt the shift. You felt the inner strength growing. You felt the clarity, the confidence, the power rising in the exact places you were once hurt. Because fire doesn't take from those who are chosen. It exposes what was already within. You didn't crawl out of the flames begging for mercy. No, you walked out steady, leveled, transformed, carrying something they don't have: rebirth. Fire didn't weaken you, it upgraded you, and now every room you walk into carries the energy of someone who survived the heat meant to destroy them. Your presence alone holds a kind of intensity they can't explain. You've become unpredictable to them, unreachable, untouchable. They used to know your insecurities. They used to know how to trigger you. They used to know how to push you to your emotional edge. But this new version of you, they can't access it. They can't manipulate it. They can't intimidate it. And that terrifies them more than any fire ever could. Because here's the truth they're choking on. They weren't the fire. You were. They were just the spark. Temporary, impulsive, reckless. But you became the full blaze. Powerful, steady, impossible to control. They thought they were scorching you, but they were only lighting the ignition point of your evolution. Chosen one, understand this. Your transformation is their consequence. Your comeback is their discomfort. Your healing is their exposure. Your rise is their reminder that they never had the power they thought they had. And now, the same people who tried to destroy you with flames are looking around at the wreckage they created, realizing the only thing that got burned was their own facade. They're standing in smoke they created, coughing on consequences they started, facing a version of you they never believed you'd become. Let them stare. Let them wonder. Let them regret under their breath. Because what they set on fire didn't die, it awakened. And now, my dear chosen ones, you stand as living proof. Those who try to scorch the chosen don't create victims. They create forces of nature. They create transformations. They create warriors forged in silence. They create storms that don't ask permission before shifting the whole atmosphere. So let them deal with the blaze they lit. Let them face the transformation they never wanted to witness. Let them realize that the fire they used against you became the fire that protects you. You are not the ashes. You are the aftermath. You are the evolution. You are the fire they can't escape. Number 4. Every shadow move they made carved the blueprint of their own collapse. They tried to bury their intentions in the dark, forgetting that shadows always reveal the shape of what's hiding. My dear chosen ones, listen closely, because this part cuts deep. They thought their sneaky moves, their whispers, their secret sabotage would stay hidden forever. They genuinely believed that if they operated in the shadows, the consequences would never find them. But here's the thing, no one ever told them. Every shadow act leaves a trail, and every trail leads right back to the one who created it. They weren't covering their tracks, they were engraving them. And chosen ones, you felt every bit of it. You saw the switch in their eyes before they ever made their move. You sensed the tension in the air before they dropped the next blow. You could feel the energy shift long before the mask slipped. It's not that you're paranoid, it's that you're perceptive. You're built to detect what others try to disguise. You read intention like a second language, even when you wish you couldn't. But here's the part they never expected. While they were busy plotting in the dark, reality was busy documenting every detail. The same shadow they hid in is now spotlighting everything they tried to keep silent. They didn't understand that the universe, neutral, unpersonal, but always balanced, doesn't need light to keep receipts. It works through patterns, through energy, through consequence. And chosen ones, you were the quiet trigger that made every consequence inevitable. Let's get real. They thought they were clever. They believed their cruelty was subtle, their manipulation undetectable, their jabs too small to matter. They genuinely thought you'd never understand what was happening. But you did. Maybe not at first, maybe not clearly, but you felt it. You felt the weird shifts, the sudden distance, the fake smiles, the accidents that weren't accidents, the alliances forming behind your back. They assumed your silence meant you were naive, but your silence was simply strategy, observation, awareness gathering itself. And now those same shadows they once hid in are turning on them. My dear chosen ones, they built their downfall piece by piece, and they didn't even know it, like architects designing their own collapse. Every lie they told reinforced the structure of their ruin. Every secret conversation tightened the knots in their future. Every time they used your kindness against you, they unknowingly sharpened the blade that would cut their own stability. You're probably thinking, why didn't it break sooner? Why did it take so long for the truth to unfold? Because collapse doesn't happen until the structure is fully formed. You can't crush a house before it's built. You can't expose someone until they've revealed enough of themselves for the truth to stick. They needed time to pour every ounce of negativity, every hidden intention, every smug decision into their own blueprint. They thought they were writing your ending, chosen one. Instead, they were drafting their own. And here's the poetic twist. You didn't have to retaliate. You didn't have to expose them. You didn't have to lift a finger. Their energy is what exposed them. The same shadow they used to hide in has now become the spotlight, revealing exactly who they are. People are noticing things they used to overlook. Patterns are repeating that they can no longer deny. Their behavior is circling back in ways they can't escape or explain. Nothing hits harder than being confronted by the reality you created. They thought staying silent about their actions would keep everything under control. But silence doesn't erase truth. It amplifies it. Pressure builds under quiet. patterns grow in darkness, and eventually the structure collapses, not because you pushed it, but because it was built on deception from the start. Chosen ones, this is where your power becomes undeniable. You were not the cause of their downfall, you were the mirror that showed it. You were the trigger, not because you attacked, but because your existence demanded authenticity they couldn't maintain. You forced them into the very behavior that now exposes them. They couldn't hide their intentions around someone whose soul refuses to shrink. And now they're feeling it. The unraveling, the paranoia, the fear of being seen for who they really are. They feel exposed, even in rooms where no one is watching. They feel guilty, even when nobody is accusing them. That's what happens when the shadow you built becomes the cage you live in. Chosen ones, your role in this was never destruction. It was revelation. Your power was never in breaking them. It was in being the one person they couldn't lie to without lying to themselves. That internal conflict they carry, that uneasiness, that sudden collapse of everything they stood on. That's the blueprint they drew in the dark, finally breaking open. Let them deal with the structural damage they created. Let them feel the weight of what they built. Let them face the shadow they thought would protect them. Because you, my dear chosen ones, have stepped out of the darkness they tried to trap you in. Number 5. They mocked your light, never realizing it was exposing everything they hid. They mocked what they couldn't dim, and now they're trembling at what it revealed. My dear chosen ones, let's tear the mask off this one, because it cuts right to the bone. They laughed at your light. They snickered behind closed doors, whispered in corners, and joked about the very qualities that made you rare. They thought your kindness was comedic, your softness a punchline, your sincerity something to mock. But here's the twist they never predicted. Every time they ridiculed your light, they accidentally made their darkness louder. They didn't realize the glow they were laughing at was the same glow exposing everything they tried to hide. You know why they mocked you, chosen one? Because your light made them feel naked in their own dishonesty. Your authenticity made their facades crack. Your empathy highlighted their cruelty. Your purity of intention made their manipulation look even uglier. Instead of elevating themselves, they tried to dim you. Instead of growing, they tried to shrink you. Instead of facing their flaws, they tried to turn you into a joke. But light doesn't lose to darkness, my dear chosen ones. It reveals it. And maybe you've asked yourself, why did they mock me when all I ever did was be real? Why did my goodness irritate them so much? Why did my presence trigger such insecurity? The answer is simple. Your light showed them everything they didn't want to see about themselves. You were the mirror they couldn't stand to look into. Every time you walked into the room, their masks slipped. Every time you spoke with honesty, their lies shivered. Every time you cared, it exposed how little they were capable of caring. And what do people do when faced with a truth they can't handle? They mock it, they attack it, they try to bury it. Mockery is the last refuge of the insecure. But you, chosen one, you kept shining, even when they rolled their eyes, even when they painted you as naive, even when they twisted your goodness into weakness. They didn't realize your silence, your patience, your warmth were not signs of softness. They were signs of self-control. They took your calm for emptiness, not realizing calmness is power that doesn't need noise. And now the consequences are arriving like a tide they can't stop. The same laughter they weaponized is echoing back at them, but this time it's revealing who they really are. The more they mocked you, the more people started noticing something interesting. You stayed consistent, grounded, and true. They didn't. Their stories changed. Their reactions became erratic. Their behavior cracked as the truth started bubbling through the seams. Your light didn't destroy them. It unveiled them. They wanted you to look foolish, chosen one, but instead they made themselves look threatened. They wanted to make you appear small, but instead they exposed how intimidated they were. They wanted to make you doubt your worth, but instead they revealed how terrified they were of your potential. You didn't even have to fight back. Your existence did the fighting for you. That's the part that keeps them up at night. Not what you said, not what you did, but the fact that you never needed their approval to shine. My dear chosen ones, this is where the divine wrath of the title comes alive. Not religious wrath, but the kind of natural, universal correction that happens when truth and illusion collide. They mocked your light, and now that same light is revealing their lies. They tried to paint you as the fool, but now they're the ones stumbling in the glare of exposure. They wanted to dim you, but now your glow is the evidence of everything they failed to destroy. They're panicking, not because you attacked them, but because they can feel the shift. You're rising, they're unraveling, you're gaining clarity, they're running out of excuses, your peace is growing, their chaos is catching up. That's what happens when someone tries to mock a force they never understood. And if you pay attention, chosen one, you'll notice something powerful. The very things they teased you for are the things others admire you for now. What they laughed at, others value. What they mocked, others respect. What they tried to bury, others now see as brilliance. Their ridicule was the spotlight that finally revealed their own shadows. So let them laugh. Let them whisper. Let them cling to their fading illusions. Because the more they try to throw shade, the brighter you shine. And the brighter you shine, the more their shadows are exposed for everyone to see. My dear chosen ones, you were never the joke. They were. And now the truth is standing center stage, illuminated by the very light they underestimated. This is the karma they can't escape. Exposure. This is the consequence they triggered. Revelation. And this, chosen one, is the proof they never expected to face. Your light was never the problem. It was the spotlight that revealed who they really were. Number 6. They mistook your silence for defeat, not knowing it was the reset that would undo them. They laughed when you went quiet, until they realized silence is where destruction sharpens its teeth. My dear chosen ones, lean in for this one, because it cuts deeper than they ever expected. They mistook your silence for surrender, not knowing your quiet was the most dangerous move you could have made. While they were busy performing, gossiping, and celebrating their little victories, they never understood that real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't argue. It doesn't chase. It doesn't beg to be understood. Real power observes and resets. And chosen one, that's exactly what your silence was. A reset, not a retreat. They thought you'd given up. They thought you finally cracked under their pressure. They thought your lack of reaction meant they'd won. But what they failed to realize is this: silence is where your strength reloads. Silence is where your clarity forms. Silence is where everything fake about them begins to collapse under its own weight. Let's get real, chosen ones. You didn't go silent because you were weak. You went silent because you were done entertaining the circus. You were done wasting breath on people who twist your words. You were done handing them access to a mind, a heart, and a spirit they were never qualified to touch in the first place. So instead of arguing, you disappeared. Instead of fighting, you regrouped. Instead of reacting, you upgraded. And while you were rebuilding yourself in silence, their downfall was already starting behind the scenes. They just didn't know it yet. You see, chosen ones, insecure and manipulative people, panic when they no longer have someone to drain. They panic when the person they aimed their cruelty at stops responding. They panic when the energy source they were feeding off disconnects. Suddenly they lose control of the narrative. Suddenly their stories don't hold up. Suddenly their audience starts seeing inconsistencies. And suddenly their masks start slipping. And they blame everything but the truth. Your silence exposed them louder than your words ever could. They thought your quiet meant you were broken. It meant you were rebuilding. They thought you were hiding. You were healing. They thought you were done. You were resetting the entire battlefield. And here's the part that really scares them, chosen ones. Silence forces people to sit alone with themselves. Without you there to absorb the blame, carry the guilt, soften their mess, or explain what they did wrong, they finally confront the chaos they tried to dump onto you. They realize it wasn't you who caused the storm. It was them. My dear chosen one, your silence has a gravity they didn't calculate. It pulls the truth to the surface. It reveals what was hidden, and it exposes every manipulative move they thought they got away with. They're watching people question their stories. They're watching their excuses crumble. They're watching their confidence crack. That nervous energy they carry now, that tension behind their smile, that sudden insecurity in rooms where they used to feel powerful, that's the reset working. Because while you were silent, chosen one, the balance was rearranging itself behind the curtain. Consequences were forming, patterns were being recognized, and the very narrative they tried to weaponize is now wrapping around them like a rope they can't untie. Do you know why they're so unsettled now? Because your silence removed their favorite weapon, your reaction. Without your reaction, they have nothing left to manipulate, nothing to twist, nothing to use against you. And now they feel it, the shift, the turn, the reversal. They are realizing that your silence wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of theirs unraveling. Chosen one, your silence didn't weaken you, it re-centered you. Your stillness didn't make you smaller. It made you untouchable. Your withdrawal didn't make you invisible. It made you unpredictable. You became a mystery they can't read anymore, a presence they can't control, a force they can't reach. And nothing terrifies an enemy more than someone they can no longer influence. So let them spin their stories. Let them panic. Let them try to fill the void your silence created with noise. It won't matter. Because you, my dear chosen ones, are not the same person who walked into that war. You're sharper, calmer, stronger, and they know it. Your silence wasn't weakness. It was the reset button they never saw coming. It was the moment their power started slipping. It was the shift that tilted the whole story in your favor. It was the quiet before their storm, not yours. So hold your silence proudly, chosen one. Because your silence is the echo of their karma. Your silence is the proof of your evolution. Your silence is the announcement of a comeback that doesn't need noise to be felt. You didn't lose by going quiet. You made sure they'd never win again. Number 7. They had every chance to make it right, but pride slammed the door on their own exit. They didn't run out of chances, my chosen ones. They ran out of excuses. My dear chosen ones, let's tell the truth plainly. They had 100 chances to stop, 100 silent warnings, 100 moments where life gave them an opening to choose better, apologize, step back, or simply walk away before the consequences set in. But pride convinced them they were untouchable. Pride told them they were right even when they were dead wrong. Pride whispered, "You'll never face consequences for this." And so pride did what pride always does. It slammed the door on their only escape route. You know what's wild, chosen one? They saw the signs long before anything collapsed. They felt the tension building. They felt the energy shift. They saw opportunities to set things right. They had moments where they knew they crossed a line with you, moments where they hesitated, moments where guilt tugged at their sleeve. But instead of humbling themselves, instead of choosing accountability, they doubled down. They laughed it off. They told themselves you'd forget, you'd forgive, you'd tolerate. They thought your silence meant they got away with it. But what they forgot, what they always forget, is that silence isn't surrender. Silence is warning. Silence is patience. Silence is the universe holding its breath, not letting them escape the consequences they wrote with their own hands. And maybe you ask yourself, why didn't they just apologize? Why didn't they own what they did? Why did they keep pushing even when it was clear the damage was done? Because, my dear chosen ones, pride makes people believe they're bigger than the truth. Pride convinces them that admitting they were wrong makes them small. Pride tricks them into thinking accountability is humiliation rather than growth. So instead of fixing what they broke, they pretended it wasn't broken. Instead of acknowledging how deeply they hurt you, they pretended you were overreacting. Instead of apologizing, they acted like nothing happened. Let's be real, they never expected the tide to turn. They never expected that one day their actions would circle back with precision. They thought consequences were for other people. They thought the aftermath would never reach them. But my dear chosen ones, consequence doesn't need permission, balance doesn't need a microphone, and justice, neutral, universal justice, always arrives exactly when the ego thinks it can't. You need to hear this. You were the last chance they didn't take. Life sent you into their path not to be their victim, but to give them a final opportunity to become better. And instead of learning from your honesty, your kindness, your patience, they mocked it. They treated your compassion like weakness. They treated your loyalty like it was guaranteed. They treated your silence like it was submission. And now they're living in the aftermath they built brick by brick while you stayed quiet, hoping they'd wake up. They didn't trip into this downfall. They walked into it, proudly, blindly, repeatedly. You didn't have to expose them. You didn't have to argue. You didn't have to seek revenge. They exposed themselves every time they chose pride over simple decency. My dear chosen ones, understand this. Life gives everyone a window to do the right thing. Some take it, most ignore it. But the foolish? They slam that window shut and then complain when the room fills with smoke. That's where they are now, choking on the consequences of doors they locked themselves. And look at you, still rising, still glowing, still becoming who they swore you'd never be. That's what stings them the most. Not that things fell apart for them, but that things are coming together for you. They thought pride would protect them. They thought refusing to apologize made them powerful. They thought ignoring the harm meant it didn't exist. But pride doesn't protect, it exposes. Pride doesn't strengthen, it blinds. Pride doesn't erase consequences, it invites them. The truth is simple. They didn't lose you because they hurt you. They lost you because they refused to fix what they broke. They had every chance to step through the open door. But pride slammed that door shut, locked it, and swallowed the key. And now, my dear chosen ones, you walk forward, not with bitterness, not with resentment, but with clarity. They were never meant to follow you into your next chapter because their ego would have poisoned the whole book. You're rising because you chose growth over drama. You chose healing over chaos. You chose elevation over confrontation. Let them sit with what they did. Let them face what they avoided. Let them live in the silence they created. Number 8. They buried you in darkness, unaware you were pressure building into a breaking storm. They thought darkness would silence you, but darkness is where storms are born. My dear chosen ones, listen closely, because this part isn't just truth. It's a reality check for every person who thought swallowing your light would somehow brighten their fading world. They believed that burying you in isolation, smothering you in lies, and drowning you in silence would erase you. They thought hiding you in the shadows meant you'd stay there forever. They didn't understand that some souls aren't dimmed by darkness. They charge inside it. They didn't bury a body. They buried potential. And potential doesn't die, it expands. Chosen ones, you weren't being covered, you were being compressed. And pressure doesn't break the right person, it transforms them. They mistook your stillness for surrender, your quiet for defeat, your retreat for collapse. They thought, finally we shut them down. But all they did was push you into the exact environment that forces transformation. And now they're realizing they sealed their own fate when they tried to seal yours. They told themselves, if we just isolate them a little more, they'll shrink. If we just spread one more rumor, they'll lose their voice. If we just turn one more person against them, they'll disappear. But Chosen One, you don't disappear, you regenerate. Like the seed buried under piles of dirt, they mistook the burial for an ending. They forgot seeds grow in silence long before they ever crack the surface. You might have wondered during that dark season, why did it feel like everyone vanished? Why did my world suddenly shrink? Why was I left alone? Why didn't anyone show up for me? My dear Chosen Ones, that wasn't abandonment. That was isolation with purpose. The universe, the energy, the balance, whatever you call it, removed every noise and every distraction so the next version of you could be built without interference. In darkness, your mind sharpened, your instincts woke up, your vision cleared. Their betrayal, it was the blueprint. Their silence, it was the training. Their attempts to bury you. They were building the pressure chamber that would one day blast you back into the world stronger than they ever imagined. And now, look at the irony. They wanted you underground, forgotten, discarded. But storms don't stay buried. Storms rise. And when they do, they don't ask permission or apologize for the damage. You were pressure building into a breaking storm long before they realized what they'd done. Every insult was another degree of heat. Every rejection was another gust of wind. Every lie they whispered about you was another bolt of lightning forming in the clouds of your comeback. They thought they won because you weren't moving. But storms don't move until they're ready to hit. Chosen Ones, hear this clearly. They didn't break you. They built the force that will break everything they thought was unshakable. That's why they're uneasy now. That's why their confidence suddenly feels flimsy. They can sense the shift. They can feel the air changing. They don't know why they're anxious, why their excuses suddenly sound empty, why their alliances are crumbling, why their lies aren't landing the way they used to. It's because the storm they created is no longer underground. It's rising, and rising storms demand space. You were never meant to stay hidden. You were meant to return, louder, brighter, unavoidable, and the part that burns them the most? You're not coming back bitter. You're not coming back broken. You're coming back rebuilt, elevated, expanded. They buried you thinking you would suffocate, but the darkness taught you how to breathe in places they could never survive. Now they're watching you from a distance, trying to figure out how someone they tried so hard to silence is now commanding an energy they can't compete with. They don't recognize this version of you because it's a version that was created without them, in spite of them and beyond them. Let them watch. Let them panic. Let them choke on the silence they expected to bury you in. You don't owe them revenge. You don't owe them explanations. You don't owe them access. The best payback isn't destruction, it's evolution. And you, my dear Chosen Ones, have evolved into something unstoppable. Everything they buried you with, shame, rumors, isolation, manipulation, has now become fuel. You are the storm they tried to silence. You are the force they hoped would never rise again. You are the eruption born from pressure they never understood. They thought darkness would break you. They didn't know darkness builds Chosen Ones, and now that the storm is breaking loose, there's only one truth left. They didn't bury you. They awakened you. And that, Chosen One, is the wrath they can't escape. Number 9. The trap they engineered snapped back and locked them inside their own intentions. They planned your downfall so carefully, they forgot to check if the trap door opened on their side too. My dear Chosen Ones, this part is personal. because this is where their own hands start trembling under the weight of what they built. They were so obsessed with watching you fall that they never noticed the ground cracking under them. They were architects of deceit, engineers of manipulation, professionals at twisting reality into a shape that suited their ego. But chosen ones, there's one rule people like them always forget. When you build a trap for someone who walks with purpose, that trap doesn't open downward, it snaps backward. They didn't just plot against you, they rehearsed it. They practiced the lies, they calculated your reactions, they studied your heart just to wound it better. They thought they were playing chess while you were playing checkers. What they didn't realize is that you don't need to play a game that collapses under its own rules. You simply stand still long enough and the game board flips itself. Chosen ones, you weren't blind, you were patient. You weren't silent because you had nothing to say. You were quiet because you knew the truth doesn't need a megaphone. You let them move how they wanted. You let them run their mouths, make their alliances, build their illusions. You let them dig the pit deeper and deeper, fully believing you'd be the one to fall in. Meanwhile, every shovel of dirt they tossed was sealing their own fate. And I know during those moments you asked yourself, why does it seem like they're getting away with everything? Why does it feel like the liars are believed and the manipulators are praised? My dear chosen ones, that was the setup. Not your downfall, theirs. People like them don't get caught immediately because exposure needs time. Shadows don't show in bright light. They show when the light comes from the right angle, and now that angle has shifted. Their trap didn't collapse because of your actions. It collapsed because of their intentions. They schemed with greed, jealousy, insecurity, attention-seeking desperation, all the unstable materials that eventually crumble. They thought they built a fortress. They actually built a mousetrap made of their own contradictions. Let's say it how it is. They were so proud of their manipulation that they became reckless. Their lies got bigger, their stories got sloppier, their masks started slipping at the corners. And the funniest part? They believed no one would ever notice, but chosen ones, when someone lies enough times, their lies eventually bump into each other. They create cracks, and those cracks become the very holes they fall through. They thought harming you would elevate them. Instead, it exposed them. They wanted to make you look unstable, but they're the ones stumbling now. They wanted to paint you as the problem, but their own actions became the exhibit. They wanted power over your peace, but now their peace is the one shattered. Everything they built to break you has turned into a cage closing around them. And the part that really hits them, you're not even fighting back. You're just living, healing, growing, evolving. Meanwhile, they're out here trying to plug holes in the sinking ship they built with their own hands. That panic they feel, chosen ones, that's the realization that their narrative is slipping out of their grip. The story they wrote about you is falling apart, and now they're scrambling to explain why so many pieces don't add up. People are watching them now, not you. Eyes that once believed their lies are now noticing the inconsistencies, the overperformance, the deflection, the way they crumble under simple questions. The trap they engineered required them to stay perfect. And perfection is the one thing manipulators can't maintain. My dear chosen ones, you know what's poetic? They spent so much time trying to break your reputation that they never protected their own. They were too busy aiming arrows at your back to notice the storm gathering behind them. They sharpened blades for you without realizing they left themselves unshielded. That's not karma, that's consequence. A natural recoil of energy. The same momentum they used against you is the momentum now dragging them down. And let's talk about that intention they buried under fake concern, fake friendship, fake loyalty. That intention is glowing now, exposed under the spotlight of their own choices. What they tried to hide is becoming the loudest part of who they are, and it's locking them in place, socially, mentally, emotionally. The walls are closing in, and they built every brick of that room. But chosen ones, hear this clearly. You don't need to gloat. You don't need revenge. You don't need to announce their downfall. Their own behavior is writing the ending for you. Let them sit in the trap they engineered. Let them deal with the consequences of their own intentions. Let them watch you walk past the very pit they dug, unbothered, unscarred, untouched. Because you were never meant to fall there. And them? They were never meant to escape it. The trap they designed became the mirror they couldn't avoid. The lies they crafted became the chains they can't break. The pit they dug became the room they can't get out of. My dear chosen ones, you didn't outplay them. As we close this chapter, my dear chosen ones, remember this. Everything they plotted, everything they pushed you through, everything they used to break you has now become the proof of your resilience. You rose through the ruins they built, and now you stand in a power they never expected you to carry. If this message hit your spirit and reminded you who you are, show your support. Like this video, subscribe for more truth that fuels your growth, and drop 77 in the comments so I know you're locked in with the chosen ones. And don't forget to share this with someone who needs their strength remembered.